The massive doors of the Galactic Confederation Council chambers slid open with a deep hum that echoed through the vast space. Ambassador Jake Morrison stepped inside, his polished black shoes clicking against the crystal floor. Behind him walked Dr. Lisa Parker, her tablet glowing softly in her hands, and Commander Sam Rodriguez, his military uniform crisp and clean. Jake had been to Nexus Prime many times before, but the council chambers never failed to impress him. The room stretched up so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Floating platforms held representatives from 47 different alien species, each platform designed to match their homeworld's environment. The Aquarians floated in tanks of blue water. The Zephyrians perched on crystalline spires that sparked with electricity. The Mantids clustered on organic pods that pulsed with green light. "Quite a turnout," Lisa whispered, scanning the crowd with her expert eyes. She had studied alien cultures for 15 years and could read the mood of any gathering. Today, something felt wrong. Sam's hand rested casually near his sidearm, a habit from 20 years of military service. He noticed the unusual security presence and the way some alien delegates avoided looking at the human delegation. "I don't like this," he muttered. The humans took their assigned platform, a simple metal disc that reflected their practical nature. Jake checked his notes one final time. They were supposed to discuss the recent conflicts in the Outer Rim, where human colonies had been attacked by the Krek swarm. The attacks had been brutal, but humanity had fought back and won. Jake expected to coordinate a joint response to prevent future Krek's expansion. A deep tone rang through the chamber. Council Speaker Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his lightning-wreathed platform. His body was tall and thin, made of what looked like living electricity contained in a transparent suit. When he spoke, his voice crackled like thunder. "Representatives of the Galactic Confederation," Vextar began, "we gather today for a matter of grave importance. The recent actions of the human species have brought shame upon our peaceful alliance." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not what they had expected. Lisa's fingers tightened around her tablet. Sam's jaw clenched. "The humans," Vextar continued, "have shown a level of violence and aggression that goes against everything our Confederation stands for. In their recent conflicts with the Krek swarm, they have used tactics that can only be described as barbaric." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the battle for New Texas, a human farming colony that had been overrun by Krek's warriors. The aliens watched footage of human ships firing kinetic rounds that turned Krek's vessels into clouds of debris. They saw human marines fighting hand-to-hand with insectoid Krek soldiers, using weapons that the aliens considered too violent for civilized warfare. "Look at this destruction," Vextar said, his electric form flickering with apparent disgust. "The humans could have negotiated. They could have found a peaceful solution. Instead, they chose to respond with overwhelming force." Representative Thelana of the Ethereal Collective spoke next. "Her species looked like floating jellyfish made of pure light. The Confederation has always believed in the power of diplomacy. The humans never even attempted to communicate with the Kreks, they simply started killing." Jake wanted to stand up and shout. The humans had tried to communicate with the Kreks for months before the attacks began. Every message had been ignored. Every peace offering had been met with silence. The Kreks only understood one language: violence. The Mantid representative clicked and buzzed in its alien tongue. The translation came through the chamber's speakers. "The Mantid Republic agrees. Humans are too quick to fight. They do not understand the value of life." More species spoke up. The Crystalline Shard Consortium complained about human mining operations that were too efficient and disrupted natural formations. The tree-like Verdant Alliance criticized human agriculture for being too productive and making other species look bad in comparison. Jake realized what was happening. This was not a discussion. This was a trial, and humanity had already been found guilty. Therefore, Speaker Vextar announced, the Galactic Confederation formally censures the human species for their aggressive and violent behavior. The humans will accept a formal rebuke, submit to oversight by our Peace Enforcement Division, and pay reparations to the displaced Kreks populations. Jake stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent, waiting for his response. He looked around at the floating platforms, at the aliens who had called humans friends just months before. These same species had begged for human help when pirates attacked their trade routes. They had asked for human protection when other threats emerged. But now, when humans had successfully defended themselves and their colonies, they were being punished for it. "Ambassador Morrison," Vextar said, Do you accept these terms on behalf of humanity? Jake opened his mouth to speak, but Vextar continued without waiting for an answer. The vote has already been scheduled for tomorrow morning. We simply wanted to inform you of our decision. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. The vote was already scheduled. His opinion, humanity's defense, their side of the story, none of it mattered. The aliens had already decided. They were not here to listen or to seek justice. They were here to humiliate humanity and force them into submission. Lisa stood up beside him, her face pale with anger. You're not even going to let us defend ourselves? There is nothing to defend, Thelana replied, her light pulsing with what might have been satisfaction. The evidence speaks for itself. Sam's hand moved to his communicator. He was already thinking about security protocols and emergency procedures. The mood in the chamber had turned hostile, and he did not trust these aliens to honor diplomatic immunity if things got worse. Jake felt a strange calm settle over him. In that moment, he made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He turned to Lisa and Sam and nodded once. They both understood immediately. The human delegation began packing their materials. The aliens watched in confusion as the humans quietly collected their datapads, their notes, and their dignity. Where are you going? Vextar demanded. The session is not over. Jake looked up at the speaker one final time. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Yes, he said simply. It is. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive council chamber, his face calm despite the storm of emotions churning inside him. The 47 alien species watched from their floating platforms, expecting either an angry outburst or a humble apology. They got neither. The United Earth Systems, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space, formally withdraws from the Galactic Confederation. Effective immediately, the chamber erupted in shocked voices, alien languages mixing into a chaotic symphony of disbelief. Vextar's electric form flickered wildly. You cannot simply leave. There are procedures, protocols. We have followed your protocols for 15 years, Jake replied calmly. We shared our technology freely. We protected your trade routes. We answered every call for help. And this is how you repay us. Dr. Lisa Parker stepped forward, her tablet already connected to the chamber's communication system. I am now transmitting humanity's formal withdrawal documents to the Confederation database. All treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts are hereby terminated. The documents appeared on holographic displays throughout the chamber. The aliens stared at them in growing horror. These were not hastily written notes of anger. These were carefully prepared legal documents, complete with proper termination clauses and timeline schedules. The humans had been ready for this moment. Commander Sam Rodriguez spoke into his wrist communicator, his voice professional and crisp. Admiral Sullivan, this is Rodriguez. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. All human personnel are to begin emergency evacuation procedures from Confederation space. High above the chamber, aboard the UES Liberty, Admiral Kate Sullivan received the message with grim satisfaction. She had hoped it would not come to this, but she had prepared for it anyway. That was the human way. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. All stations, Sullivan announced over the ship's communication system. Protocol 7 is now in effect. We are leaving Confederation space. Begin immediate recall of all human personnel from alien facilities. The Zephyrian speaker's voice crackled with desperate energy. Ambassador Morrison, surely we can discuss this reasonably. The Confederation values humanity's contributions. Do you? Jake interrupted, turning to face the floating platform where Vextar sparked and flashed. Because from where I stand, it seems like you value us only when we do exactly what you want. When we defend ourselves successfully, we are barbaric. When we solve problems efficiently, we are too aggressive. When we share our technology, you take it for granted. But when we ask for basic respect, you schedule votes without even hearing our side. Representative Thelana of the Ethereal Collective pulsed with agitated light. The humans are being emotional and irrational. This is exactly the kind of behavior that proves our point about their aggressive nature. Lisa looked up from her tablet, her scientific mind sharp as a laser. Emotional? We have 15 years of service records. We have answered 347 distress calls from Confederation members. We have shared technology worth trillions of credits. We have lost 12,000 human lives protecting alien colonies. And you call us emotional for objecting to being treated like criminals? The facts hung in the air like weapons. Several alien representatives shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. The dolphin-like Aquarians began clicking among themselves in heated discussion. Even some of the more hostile species seemed to realize that the humans had valid grievances, but Vextar was too proud to back down. The Confederation has benefited humanity as much as humanity has benefited the Confederation. You have gained access to advanced alien technology and scientific knowledge. Sam Rodriguez laughed, a sound that carried no humor. Advanced technology? Like what? Your faster-than-light communication system that breaks down every 6 months? Your energy weapons that overheat after 10 shots? Your medical technology that works on only half the species in the galaxy? We gave you fusion power, Lisa added, her voice growing stronger. We gave you quantum computing. We gave you medical nanobots that work on every known biology. We gave you agricultural techniques that tripled food production. What exactly did we receive in return besides criticism and condescension? The chamber fell silent. The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. Human technology had revolutionized the galaxy. Human military tactics had kept the peace. Human diplomacy had prevented dozens of wars. And in return, humanity had received constant complaints about being too successful, too efficient, too effective. A new voice spoke from the organic pods where the mantids clustered. Perhaps we have been hasty in our judgment. The human contributions to the Confederation are significant. Too late, Jake said simply. He closed his folder of notes and tucked it under his arm. You have shown us what you really think of humanity. You have shown us that our friendship and partnership mean nothing to you. You have shown us that you prefer the comfort of moral superiority to the reality of galactic security. Lisa finished uploading the withdrawal documents and powered down her tablet. All human-operated systems in Confederation space will be shut down within 72 hours. All human personnel will be evacuated within 1 week. All shared technology licenses are revoked, effective in 30 days. The implications hit the aliens like a physical blow. Human systems ran nearly half of the Confederation's infrastructure. Human personnel operated critical defense installations, communication networks, and trade monitoring stations. Human technology powered everything from medical facilities to space elevators. You cannot leave us defenseless, shouted the crystalline representative of the Shard Consortium. The Kreks are still a threat. The Kreks, Sam said coldly, are your problem now. You called our methods barbaric. You said we were too violent. Fine, handle them your way. Negotiate with them. Find a peaceful solution. I am sure they will be very reasonable. Jake turned toward the chamber's exit. Lisa and Sam fell into step beside him. Behind them, the alien representatives burst into panicked chatter. Some called for them to stop. Others demanded explanations. A few even begged them to reconsider. Ambassador Morrison, Vextar's voice cracked like lightning. You are making a terrible mistake. Humanity needs the Confederation. Jake paused at the massive doors and looked back one final time. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. No, Speaker Vextar, you need us. You just never bothered to realize it. The three humans walked through the doors, which sealed behind them with a deep resonant sound that seemed to echo across the entire galaxy. In the chamber they left behind, 47 alien species sat in stunned silence, beginning to understand the magnitude of what they had just lost. The silence stretched on, broken only by the sound of their own panicked breathing and the sudden, terrible realization that they were now truly alone. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the council chambers, and the galaxy was falling apart. Council Economic Advisor Thexani stared at the holographic displays floating in his private office, each one showing another disaster. His forearms moved frantically across multiple data panels, trying to make sense of the cascading failures that had started the moment humanity left. Trade routes that had been safe for decades were now plagued by pirates. Without human patrol ships, the criminals had grown bold. They attacked merchant vessels with impunity, knowing that Confederation response times were measured in weeks rather than hours. The Outer Rim had become a lawless frontier overnight. Agricultural shipments had simply stopped. The human farming worlds of New Texas, Green Valley, and Prairie Home had been the breadbasket of the galaxy. Their efficient farming techniques and modified crops fed billions of aliens across dozens of star systems. Now those worlds had closed their borders and were selling food only to their own colonies. Thexani's worst headache came from the technology failures. Human-designed quantum computers were breaking down throughout Confederation space, and nobody knew how to fix them. The humans had always handled maintenance and upgrades themselves. Without their expertise, critical systems were failing one by one. Sir, his assistant buzzed through the intercom. Speaker Vextar wants another emergency meeting about the economic crisis. Vexani sighed. A sound like steam escaping from a pressure valve. Tell him I will have the report ready in 1 hour. The numbers were devastating. Galactic trade had dropped by 23%. Critical rare earth elements that humans had mined efficiently were now in short supply. The anti-piracy coalition that had kept space lanes safe was 60% human-staffed, and its remaining members were scattered and ineffective. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Alex Turner sat in the Oval Office with his Security Council, reviewing reports from across human space. Secretary of Defense Maria Santos spread holographic star charts across the table, each one marked with evacuation routes and defensive positions. The withdrawal is proceeding ahead of schedule, Santos reported. Captain Ryan North has successfully evacuated all human personnel from Confederation space stations. We have also shut down all human-operated infrastructure that other species cannot maintain. President Turner nodded approvingly. What about our former allies? Any requests for assistance? Dozens, Santos replied. The Aquarian Federation has lost 3 colony worlds to pirate attacks. The Verdant Alliance is experiencing food shortages without our agricultural shipments. Even the Zephyrians are having power grid failures because they relied on our fusion technology. Engineer Grace Williams, recently returned from the evacuation, spoke up from her position near the window. The most critical issue is their communication networks. The Confederation's quantum communication system was built with human components and maintained by human technicians. Without us, they are losing contact with outer systems daily. Turner leaned back in his chair, considering the situation. Are we receiving any formal requests for assistance? Nothing official, Santos said. A few back-channel communications from individual species, but the Confederation leadership is too proud to admit they made a mistake. The president's expression hardened. Then they can live with the consequences of their choices. The consequences were becoming more severe each day. The Krex, sensing the political chaos and military weakness, had launched new attacks on formerly protected Council worlds. 3 colonies had fallen before the Confederation could even organize a defense response. Captain Ryan North, now commanding the human evacuation fleet, received increasingly desperate messages from former alien colleagues. The Confederation's military coordination had collapsed without human strategic expertise. Their response to Krex attacks was slow, disorganized, and completely ineffective. It is like watching children try to fight wolves, North reported to Admiral Sullivan during their daily briefing. They send formal diplomatic protests to the Krex before each battle. They argue about proportional response while colonies burn. They still think this is a political problem that can be solved with negotiations. Admiral Sullivan studied the tactical displays showing Krex movements. Any change in their expansion pattern? They are accelerating, North replied grimly. The Krex have figured out that human forces are gone. They know the Confederation cannot stop them now. Meanwhile, Grace Williams was documenting the full scope of human technological contributions as she oversaw system shutdowns across Confederation space. The list was staggering. Fusion power plants, quantum communication networks, medical nanobots, atmospheric processors, gravity generators, and hundreds of smaller systems that kept alien civilization running. We never realized how dependent they had become, Williams told her engineering team. They took our technology and integrated it into everything, but they never learned how it actually worked. When we leave, we are not just taking our people. We are taking their technological foundation. The alien species were beginning to understand this themselves. Emergency sessions of the Confederation Council had become daily occurrences. Speaker Vextar found himself facing increasingly angry representatives who demanded answers he did not have. The humans were supposed to be the problem, complained the Mantid representative. Their departure was supposed to make the galaxy more peaceful. Instead, everything is falling apart. Vextar's electric form flickered with stress. The humans were clearly more integrated into our infrastructure than we realized. This is a temporary setback. We will adapt. But adaptation was proving difficult. Without human mining operations, rare elements needed for advanced technology were becoming scarce. Without human medical expertise, alien hospitals were struggling with diseases that human nanobots had previously cured. Without human agricultural techniques, food production was declining across multiple systems. The final blow came when the Krex attacked Harmony Station, the Confederation's most important research facility. The station had been protected by human shield generators and defended by human marines. Without them, it fell in less than 6 hours. The loss of Harmony Station sent shockwaves throughout Confederation space. It had been considered impregnable, a symbol of alien scientific achievement. Now it was a burning wreck drifting through space, its research data lost forever. Thexani finished his economic report with trembling hands. The numbers told a story of complete systemic failure. The Galactic Confederation was not just facing difficulties. It was facing collapse. As he prepared to deliver the bad news to Speaker Vextar, Thexani could not help but remember the final words Ambassador Morrison had spoken in the council chambers. "You need us. You just never bothered to realize it." Now they were realizing it. The question was whether it was already too late. 6 months after the humans walked away, the Galactic Confederation was learning a harsh truth. They had been completely wrong about everything. Speaker Vextar stood in what remained of the council chambers, looking at the empty platforms where 12 species used to sit. Those species had withdrawn from the Confederation entirely, seeking their own deals with humanity or simply trying to survive on their own. The great alliance that had stood for centuries was crumbling like a sandcastle in a storm. The Krex had overrun 12 star systems, and every single Confederation military response had failed catastrophically. The aliens finally understood why humans had seemed so barbaric in their methods. It was not because humans were cruel or violent. It was because humans were the only species that actually knew how to fight the Krex and win. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Reports were coming in from across human space about desperate alien requests for help. Every species that had condemned human military tactics 6 months ago was now begging for human intervention. "Admiral," her communications officer announced, "we are receiving another priority message from the Aquarian Federation. Ambassador Zenara is requesting immediate assistance." Sullivan had known Zenara for years. The dolphin-like alien had been one of the few voices of reason in the Confederation, but even she had voted to censure humanity. Now her people were paying the price for that decision. "Put her through," Sullivan said. Zenara's image appeared on the main screen, her usually graceful movements jerky with panic. "Admiral Sullivan, please. The Krex have taken our outer colonies. Millions of Aquarians are dead. We cannot stop them." "I am sorry to hear about your losses," Sullivan replied carefully, "but the Aquarian Federation voted to censure humanity for our military methods. You called us barbaric for fighting the Krex effectively." "We were wrong," Zenara said, her voice breaking. "We did not understand. We thought there had to be a peaceful solution." Sullivan's expression softened slightly. "What changed your mind?" "We tried to negotiate with them," Zenara explained. "We sent diplomatic missions. We offered them territory, resources, anything they wanted. They responded by eating our ambassadors alive and broadcasting it across our communication networks. The brutal truth was spreading throughout the galaxy. The Krex were not a misunderstood species seeking resources or territory. They were a galactic plague that viewed all other life as food. They could not be reasoned with, negotiated with, or reformed. They had to be destroyed completely, or they would destroy everything else. Colonel Nick Hayes was demonstrating this harsh reality at the Battle of Kepler 442b. His human task force had arrived to find a Confederation fleet trying to contain a Krex infestation using proportional response tactics. The results were predictably disastrous. "This is Colonel Hayes to Confederation Command," he announced over the communication channel. "You are fighting them wrong. Pull back your forces and let us handle this." The alien commander, a crystalline being from the Shard Consortium, responded with obvious irritation. "Colonel Hayes, we appreciate your offer of assistance, but we have the situation under control. We are following proper Confederation military protocols. Your protocols are getting your people killed," Hayes replied bluntly. "I am watching Krex forces tear through your formations like paper. They do not follow your rules of engagement. We cannot simply abandon our principles of proportional response," the alien commander insisted. "That would make us no better than barbarians." Hayes watched through his tactical display as another Confederation ship was overrun and consumed. The aliens were fighting the Krex like they were fighting other civilized species. They were trying to minimize casualties, avoid collateral damage, and preserve infrastructure. Meanwhile, the Krex were using every dirty trick in the book to kill as many aliens as possible. "Fine," Hayes said. "But when your people start dying in greater numbers, remember that you chose this." 24 hours later, the Confederation fleet was in full retreat. They had lost half their ships and accomplished nothing. The Krex infestation had actually grown stronger by feeding on captured alien personnel and technology. Hayes contacted the alien commander again. "Are you ready to try this our way?" This time there was no hesitation. "Please, whatever you need, we will provide." The human assault began at dawn. Hayes coordinated a simultaneous strike from 6 different directions, using kinetic bombardment to destroy Krex breeding facilities, while Marine units swept through infested areas with flamethrowers and plasma guns. There were no attempts at communication, no offers of surrender, no concerns about proportional response. The key to fighting the Krex, Hayes explained to his officers as they watched the battle unfold, is understanding what they are. They are not soldiers or politicians or negotiators. They are a biological weapon designed to consume everything in their path. You do not negotiate with cancer. You cut it out. 72 hours after the human attack began, Kepler 442b was completely clear of Krex infestation. The alien survivors stared in amazement at the efficiency of human tactics. What had seemed impossible using Confederation methods had been accomplished in 3 days using human warfare. Dr. Peter Clark was explaining the scientific basis for human tactics in his research laboratory on Earth. His team had spent years studying Krex, biology and psychology, trying to understand what made them so dangerous. "The Krex are not individuals like us," Clark explained to a gathering of human military officers. "They are a collective organism with a single driving instinct: consume and reproduce. Each Krex warrior is like a single cell in a larger body. They do not fear death because they do not truly live as individuals." His holographic displays showed detailed analyses of Krex biology. They communicate through chemical signals, not language. They coordinate through genetic programming, not tactics. They do not have leaders or hierarchies in any sense we would understand. Trying to negotiate with them is like trying to negotiate with a forest fire. Captain Lucy Davis, recently returned from a combat mission, raised her hand. "So the Confederation's diplomatic approach was doomed from the start?" "Completely doomed," Clark confirmed. "The Krex do not even understand the concept of negotiation. When aliens send diplomatic messages, the Krex interpret them as surrender signals. The messages actually encourage the Krex to attack more aggressively." This scientific understanding was slowly spreading to other species as human researchers shared their findings. The aliens were beginning to realize that their entire approach to the Krex problem had been based on fundamental misunderstandings about what the Krex actually were. Engineer Ben Foster was working on the next generation of human military technology in secret research facilities scattered across human space. Without the need to share every innovation with alien allies, human scientists were making rapid advances in weapons, shields, and space travel. "The fusion-powered battle stations are ready for deployment," Foster reported to President Turner. "They can destroy an entire Krex hive ship with a single shot. The aliens never saw anything like this when we were sharing our technology with them." President Turner studied the technical specifications with interest. "How long would it take to build enough of these to secure human space?" 6 months for initial deployment," Foster replied. "But we have also developed new faster-than-light drives that will give us a significant tactical advantage." The technology gap between us and the Confederation is growing every day. The message was becoming clear throughout the galaxy. Humanity had moved beyond the need for the Galactic Confederation. While the aliens struggled with problems they could not solve, humans were building a future they could not imagine. The Krex threat that seemed unstoppable to the Confederation was becoming manageable to human forces. The technology gap that had once favored alien species was now reversed. The military coordination that had failed spectacularly under Confederation leadership was working perfectly under human command. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently, and there was no going back. 1 year after the humans walked out in silence, the Galactic Confederation was dying. 16 member species had officially withdrawn from the Alliance, and more were leaving every week. The Krex now controlled nearly 30 star systems, and their expansion showed no signs of slowing. What had once been the greatest alliance in galactic history was now a handful of frightened species huddled in their core worlds, watching their civilization collapse around them. Former Speaker Vextar stood in the ruins of his office on Nexus Prime, looking out at a city that was slowly emptying as alien civilians fled to safer systems. His electric form flickered weakly, the confident lightning that had once danced around his body now reduced to dim sparks. He had been stripped of his title after the military disasters, but he was still the closest thing the Confederation had to a leader. Sir? His aide buzzed through the failing communication system. The delegation is ready to depart for Earth. Vextar turned away from the window with a heavy heart. He was about to do something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. He was going to Earth to beg for humanity's help. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks in the aging Confederation transport ship. Every day brought new reports of Krek's victories and Confederation defeats. By the time they reached the Sol system, 3 more planets had fallen to the insectoid swarm. Earth looked different than Vextar remembered. New space stations orbited the planet, their designs sleek and advanced beyond anything the Confederation could build. Human ships moved with purpose and confidence, their hulls gleaming with unknown technologies. This was not the world of a species that needed help. This was the capital of a new galactic power. The humans received the delegation politely but without warmth. They were escorted to a conference room in the New Geneva facility, where they found themselves facing Jake Morrison. The former ambassador was now Director of Human External Affairs, and his role in the new order was obvious from the respect shown to him by every human they encountered. Speaker Vexitar, Morrison said, using the former title out of courtesy rather than recognition. I understand you have something to discuss with us. Vexitar's pride wanted him to maintain dignity, but his species' survival demanded honesty. Director Morrison, the Confederation formally requests that humanity return to the Alliance. We offer you full leadership positions, complete autonomy in military matters, and any other terms you consider reasonable. Morrison leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. That is a generous offer, Speaker. But I have to ask, what has changed? A year ago you censured us for fighting the Kreks effectively. You called us barbaric for using tactics that actually worked. What makes you think we want to rejoin an organization that treated us so poorly? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Vextar had prepared for this moment, but facing Morrison's calm stare made him realize how hollow any excuse would sound. We were wrong, Vextar admitted, his electric form dimming further. We did not understand the true nature of the Kreks threat. We did not appreciate the value of humanity's contributions. We allowed pride and prejudice to cloud our judgment. Yes, Morrison agreed simply. You did. President Alex Turner entered the room, followed by his security detail. Vextar had met Turner before during diplomatic functions, but the human leader seemed different now. There was a confidence and authority that had not been there during the Confederation years. This was a man leading a rising power, not a member species seeking approval. Speaker Vextar, Turner said, taking a seat across from the alien delegation. I have been following the situation in Confederation space with interest. Your losses to the Kreks have been significant. Catastrophic, Vextar corrected. We cannot stop them. Our military tactics, our technology, our entire approach to warfare, none of it works against the Kreks. We need human expertise to survive. Turner exchanged a look with Morrison before responding. The interesting thing is that our approach to the Kreks has not changed at all. We are using the same tactics, the same weapons, the same strategies that you condemned a year ago. The only difference is that now you understand what the alternative looks like. Captain Lucy Davis entered the room, carrying a data pad filled with recent battle reports. She had just returned from the front lines where human forces were systematically pushing back the Kreks in coordination with their new allies. The latest numbers, Mr. President, Davis reported. We have successfully cleared the Kreks from 7 systems in the past month. Coalition forces are advancing on 3 additional fronts. Turner accepted the report with a nod. Thank you, Captain. Please continue with your briefing. Davis turned to address the alien delegation directly. Our current coalition includes 31 species, all operating under unified command structure with humans providing strategic leadership. We have reclaimed 40 systems from the Kreks and established defensive perimeters that have held for 6 months without a single breach. The numbers were devastating to hear. While the Confederation continued losing ground to the Kreks, humanity had built a new alliance that was actually winning the war. How? Vextar asked desperately. How are you achieving what we could not? Engineer Ben Foster spoke from his position near the wall displays. We stopped trying to fight a civilized war against an uncivilized enemy. We accepted that the Kreks cannot be reasoned with, only destroyed. We built weapons designed to kill them efficiently, rather than weapons designed to look good in diplomatic meetings. Foster activated a holographic display showing the new human battle stations. The fusion-powered weapons platforms were massive constructs capable of destroying entire Kreks hive ships with single shots. They were weapons of war, not diplomacy. Our technology has advanced significantly since leaving the Confederation, Foster continued. Without the need to compromise with alien sensibilities, we have been able to develop faster-than-light communications, quantum shielding, and plasma weapons that the Confederation never imagined possible. Turner stood and walked to the large window overlooking Earth's capital city. The problem, Speaker Vextar, is that you are asking us to rejoin an organization that fundamentally opposes everything that makes us effective. The Confederation wants us to be strong enough to protect you, but weak enough to control. That arrangement no longer serves humanity's interests. Morrison opened a folder and placed several documents on the table. These are formal requests for alliance from species that have withdrawn from the Confederation, the Aquarian Federation, the Verdant Alliance, the Mineral Consortium. They all want to join our coalition under human leadership. We call it the Terran Coalition, Turner explained, turning back to face the delegation. It operates on principles of mutual defense, technological cooperation, and practical action over political posturing. Member species contribute according to their abilities and receive protection according to their needs. What about us? Vextar asked quietly. Is there a place for the Confederation in this new order? Turner and Morrison exchanged another look. The answer was written in their expressions before either man spoke. The Confederation as an organization has proven itself incapable of effective action, Turner said. Individual species are welcome to apply for coalition membership, but they must accept human leadership in military matters and human oversight in critical technology transfers. The message was clear. Humanity would not rejoin the Confederation. Instead, they had built something better and were inviting the survivors to join them on human terms. Bexitar felt the last of his lightning fade away. The proud galactic confederation that had once ruled the galaxy was finished. In its place, a new order was rising, one built on human strength, human technology, and human leadership. We will need time to consider your offer, Vextar said finally. Of course, Turner replied, but do not take too long. The Kreks are not waiting for your deliberations. 2 years after the humans walked out in silence, the galaxy belonged to a new order. Jake Morrison stood in the Terran Coalition Council chambers, watching representatives from 31 species work together, with an efficiency that the old Confederation had never achieved. The chamber itself was built on Earth, designed with human principles of practicality over ceremony. There were no floating platforms or environmental special effects, just simple meeting spaces where beings could focus on solving problems, rather than displaying their importance. The morning briefing was proceeding smoothly. Admiral Sullivan reported that coalition forces had successfully reclaimed 40 systems from the Kreks and established defensive perimeters that had held without a single breach for 8 months. The insectoid plague that had once seemed unstoppable was now being systematically eliminated by coordinated human-led military operations. The final phase of Operation Clean Sweep begins tomorrow, Sullivan announced to the assembled representatives. Coalition forces will assault the 3 remaining Krek strongholds simultaneously. Intelligence indicates these are the last major breeding centers in this sector of the galaxy. Representative Zenara of the Aquarian Federation raised a graceful fin. Admiral, what are the projected casualties for this operation? Minimal, Sullivan replied confidently. Human battle doctrine emphasizes overwhelming force applied precisely where it will do the most damage. We do not fight fair against the Kreks. We fight to win completely. The alien representatives nodded approvingly. They had learned the hard way that humanity's barbaric military tactics were actually the most humane approach possible when facing an enemy that could not be reasoned with. Quick, decisive victories saved more lives than prolonged civilized conflicts. Dr. Lisa Parker, now serving as the Coalition's chief science officer, stood to deliver her technology report. Her research stations had made breakthrough discoveries in faster-than-light communication, quantum shielding, and medical nanobots that worked on every known biology. The technological gap between the Coalition and the remnants of the old Confederation grew wider every day. Our latest development is a quantum communication network that provides instantaneous contact across the entire galaxy, Parker announced. Coalition members will be able to coordinate operations and share information in real time, regardless of distance. The Mantid representative clicked excitedly. Dr. Parker, how does this compare to the old Confederation communication system? There is no comparison, Parker replied. The Confederation system had a 3-day lag time across galactic distances and failed regularly. Our network operates at quantum speeds with 99.9% reliability. Morrison smiled as he watched the proceedings. This was what cooperation looked like when it was built on mutual respect rather than political hierarchy. Species contributed their unique strengths without being held back by the lowest common denominator of the group. Meanwhile, in the ruins of the old Confederation space, the survivors huddled in their remaining core worlds. Speaker Vextar's replacement, a young Zephyrian named Kexval, spent his days sending increasingly desperate messages to Earth. The messages went unanswered, filed away with hundreds of similar pleas that arrived every week. The latest message sat on Morrison's desk, unread like all the others. The Confederation continued to beg for aid, offering everything from complete submission to tribute payments. They had finally learned what humanity was worth, but the lesson had come too late. Captain Lucy Davis returned from the front lines with reports that confirmed humanity's complete military dominance. The new fusion-powered battle stations could destroy entire Krex fleets with single shots. Human Marines armed with plasma weapons and powered armor could clear infested planets in days rather than years. The technology that humanity had developed in isolation was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had ever seen. The interesting thing, Davis reported to Morrison during their private meeting, is how much our capabilities have improved since we stopped sharing everything with the Confederation. When we were trying to make technology that worked for 47 different species, we had to compromise on efficiency and effectiveness. Now that we design for human needs first, our equipment is vastly superior. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. The same principle applies to our military doctrine. We no longer have to argue with committee members who think warfare should be polite and proportional. We can focus on tactics that actually work. Engineer Ben Foster was demonstrating this principle in his advanced research laboratories. Without the need to explain every innovation to alien scientists who might not understand human engineering principles, his teams were making rapid advances in space travel, weapons technology, and planetary defense systems. The quantum drives are ready for fleet deployment, Foster reported during the weekly technology briefing. Our ships can now travel across the galaxy in hours rather than weeks. No other species has anything comparable. President Turner reviewed the strategic situation with satisfaction. The Terran Coalition controlled the most advanced technology, the most effective military, and the strongest economy in the galaxy. Species that had once looked down on humanity as aggressive barbarians now competed desperately for the privilege of joining the human-led alliance. How many applications for coalition membership did we receive this week? Turner asked his aide. 17, Mr. President, including formal requests from 3 former Confederation core species. Turner considered the applications carefully. The coalition was selective about new members, requiring demonstrated commitment to practical cooperation over political posturing. Species that wanted to join had to prove they could contribute meaningfully and follow human leadership in critical matters. The contrast with the old system was stark. The Galactic Confederation had been a democracy where every species had equal voice regardless of their contribution. The result had been endless debates, compromise solutions that satisfied no one, and paralysis in the face of real threats. The Terran Coalition operated more like a meritocracy, where species earned influence through competence and contribution. Humans led because they were demonstrably the most effective at solving galactic problems. Other species contributed their unique strengths within that framework. Morrison stood at the large window in his office, looking out at the bustling spaceport where coalition ships from dozens of species came and went with clockwork efficiency. 2 years ago, he had been Ambassador Morrison, representing humanity's interest to an alliance that barely tolerated human participation. Now he was Director Morrison, helping to lead an organization that other species competed to join. His assistant announced another communication from the Confederation remnants. Morrison glanced at the message preview and deleted it without reading the full text. Some conversations once ended could not be restarted. Some relationships once broken could not be repaired. The Confederation had made their choice when they scheduled a vote to humiliate humanity without even listening to human concerns. They had chosen pride over partnership, politics over pragmatism, moral superiority over effective action. Now they were living with the consequences of that choice. The final irony was that the galaxy had become more peaceful under human leadership than it had ever been under Confederation rule. The Krex threat that had seemed unstoppable was nearly eliminated. Trade flowed more efficiently. Conflicts between species were resolved quickly through practical negotiation, rather than endless committee meetings. Morrison turned back to his desk and the daily reports from across Coalition space. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to build something better than what had come before. The old Confederation was history, a cautionary tale about the price of arrogance and the value of recognizing true partnership. Outside his window, ships from 31 species worked together under human coordination, building a future that none of them could have achieved alone. The humans had walked out in silence, but they had not walked away from their destiny. They had simply chosen to fulfill it on their own terms. The silence that had once seemed like an ending had become a new beginning. And the galaxy was better for it.